Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and the many that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls. Bottom line, the information for you. That's going to be a little difficult today because there is just so much going on. I've had a hard time this morning trying to distill it down to the basic information that I'd like to share with you. Today is October 5th, 2022. There's a lot going on in Iraq. There's a lot going on in the United States. There's a lot going on for the Western European nations in the central bank. There's a lot going on in the world, and it's all somewhat interrelated. So again, I've kind of tried to distill it as best that I can. So let's start by talking a little bit about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be relevant. Of course, the most relevant piece of information would be a window for the potential reinstitution of the Iraqi Dinar in country, which we believe is the catalyst for the reinstitution of a number of currencies currently in a program rate, or at least substantially devalued at present. Before I proceed, I want to qualify what I'm going to share with you, particularly with regard to the reinstitution of the dinar, by mentioning that the reinstitution of the Kuwaiti dinar back in the early 90s was just prior to the reinstitution was a little bit similar to what's going on right now, which was complete and utter confusion. As a matter of fact, the government of Kuwait and their central bank stated that the Kuwaiti dinar would probably not reinstitute for about a year. 48 hours later, the currency reinstituted. So the rule of thumb seems to be that for a number of reasons, probably one of which having to do with taking advantage of the situation, would be not specifically giving a day, time, an hour for the reinstitution of any given currency, because that's a window for all of the speculators to jump in. So that's where we were with the Kuwaiti reinstitution in the early 90s, and in my opinion, that seems to be where we are now. So let's talk about what's going on in Iraq. There are two stories to tell. One, which is the things going on that everyone can see, and then there are the things going on that no one can see but can only surmise and suspect based on what little information we have. So we have a situation in Iraq where we have both political and sectarian unrest. We have a dysfunctional parliament. We have legitimate arguments about whether or not the currency can reinstitute because of the current money supply and the lack of economic diversity. I've addressed those two issues and believe that the reinstitution, in fact, overcomes those issues. And then we have the governor of the CBI, Galeb, who stated that there will be no change in the exchange rate, certainly this year and in the foreseeable future. But once again, I point back to what happened in Kuwait, where almost verbatim statements were being made in Kuwait about their reinstitution, which again happened within 48 hours later. I'm not saying that the dinar is going to reinstitute in the next 48 hours. I'm simply saying that, in my opinion, it could happen at any time. So there's kind of two ways to look at this. There's the group that says that the reinstitution is not possible because they have all of these problems to overcome. And then there's the group that says, well, in fact, it's the reinstitution of the currency that could resolve some of these problems. So we'll just have to see how this plays out. Also, in my opinion, I do think that Kazemi is the key, and that the caretaker government at present is the only thing that seems to be functioning properly in Iraq. Now, what's Kazemi been up to? Well, he was recently the UN, made a speech, talked to a lot of people. He has negotiated both trade and banking agreements with multiple countries. He's also facilitated meetings between the CBI, the IMF, the Arab Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. So all of these agreements, all of these banking and trade agreements make absolutely no sense whatsoever if Iraq were to remain in a program rate, the dinar were to remain in a program rate. And there'd be no point for the meeting at all unless the issue of a change in the exchange rate was not number one on the list of things that needed to be discussed. These meetings make no sense otherwise. So that's pretty good news. So again, if you are a dinarian, and many of us have that whole dinar have had them for over a decade, along with other currencies, the dong, the rupiah, the zim, even the real, Venezuelan currency, other currencies. We seem to be moving, even though it's one step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We seem to be edging toward the conclusion. I'll just close with this. In my opinion, the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar can and should happen in the near future, and it's not an if question, it's a when question. One other thing I'll throw in there, it's this. The IMF is actually getting frustrated and wants the CBI and the government of Iraq to proceed. And for the primary reason that they know that as these currencies come out of a program rate and they're reinstituted, they will be depegged from the dollar and pegged to the IMF basket of currencies. This is the direction that they wish to move. There are some negatives to that. I don't want to get into the central bank digital currency and all of that. We'll be discussing that in a little bit more detail, if not later in this call, certainly in weeks to come. The push for the digital currency now may be, if not directly, at least indirectly related to the anticipation of these currencies coming out of a program rate and the central banks wanting to take control of those funds through a digital currency. So, and there are ways around that, again, which we will be discussing when time permits, when it's the proper time to discuss that. But we will be getting into all of that. What I want to address now is the program that Trusts Unlimited has put in place to assist those of us that are holding dinar and other currencies. The vast majority of these individuals are hardworking middle-class folks that have, for the first time, will be faced with the daunting task of managing a substantial amount of money. And not only will they be faced with that task, but it's at a time where finance, investments are so confusing, so convoluted, and there's so much information out there that's just that you cannot confirm. So it's going to be a very, very difficult task. Trust Unlimited's program is a 2-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. I want to start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your Family Asset Protection Trust package. For over a decade, we have marketed this package to dinarians and those that have these pre-valued currencies. But given the collection of kleptocrats that are running the United States of America right now, this package is going to be indispensable for American citizens who want to protect their privacy, want to take advantage of what tax advantages are going to be available, given the fact that this government is just about to sick 87,000 IRS agents on us. And we'll be getting into that as well. But this package, in our view, is the best asset protection available domestically. So I will be discussing not only why this package is important for all Americans, but specifically for Dinarians, and why this package needs to be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there are entities that individuals can establish to provide some level of privacy and asset protection. For example, you can establish LLCs and sub-S corporations, and they do provide some level of asset protection, but that's primarily by dividing personal assets from business assets. The problem for us, of course, is that these currencies are personal assets. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by an individual or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and the sub-S corporation are not really going to provide the asset protection we're going to need. And because these are statutory entities, you're going to have to file annual fees, and of course they're subject to inspection from the various states, so they're just not going to work for us. Now, there's another trust. It's called a revocable trust, sometimes called a living or a loving trust. It's a statutory instrument established primarily to exempt one's estate from the cost and delay of probate, which is a state function, and, if properly structured, can substantially reduce the federal estate tax. I myself have a revocable trust. However, these trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so again, they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Lastly, there are floating around out there a number of irrevocable trusts. Our trust is an irrevocable trust, but it's a package which provides substantial additional protection beyond an individual irrevocable trust. Now, the irrevocable trust does provide more asset protection than the LLC, sub-S corporation, or revocable trusts, but the problem here is that all of your assets and net worth are housed in that one entity, meaning that anything within that trust that gets involved in civil litigation would necessarily drag everything within that trust into litigation. So that's not going to be the optimal solution. The optimal solution, again, is to establish a family package of irrevocable trusts. And for those of us that hold currencies, this package is going to need to be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies. And I'd like to review these reasons with you. First, this trust package will provide you the privacy and anonymity that you need. That's because these assets are sealed and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Now, this is important because we know statistically that 1 out of 4 millionaires, and that's what you're going to be after this revaluation, 1 out of 4 millionaires will be sued sometime in their lifetime, and that 40%, approximately 40% of these lawsuits are wholly frivolous, meaning the individual knows they have no case. They've just taken out their slide rule, done the math, and determined, well, you know what, they're going to pay me a little money just to go away. It's a nuisance lawsuit. All of these things go away if your estate and assets are within trust because these individuals have no knowledge of what you possess. So they're not going to be willing to put up a retainer, a substantial retainer, to sue you. Second, by establishing this pre-RV trust package, you're going to be able to avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers are probably going to spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year tax audit. Now, such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the precise time that these currencies have revalued, and there's many more much important things you'd rather be doing. And lastly, the cost of our trust package is probably going to be substantially less than the cost of a full-blown 6-year audit. On the other hand, if your pre-RV asset protection trust package is in place and you have assigned your currencies to that trust, you are going to be able to avoid an IRS audit for two reasons. First, there's less than a 15% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. And second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting a substantial amount of currency to family and friends. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% gift tax by gifting to family and friends, you can gift currencies to individuals before they revalue. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them their proportionate share of the post-RV lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished very simply outside of the trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can gift the currencies to them through our specially designed gift subtrust that's part of our package. And because you're gifting to them through this subtrust, not only will their USD be protected along with yours, but you will have sole discretion over those funds in order to manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. Now, the fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving that estate of $25 million to your heirs. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much each stands to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie your estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be passed to your heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, but it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million. But this time, protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their estate. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV family asset protection trust package is for two very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does this mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000. Assign those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth. A couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case because his trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming in order to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil suit would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transfer them out of title and to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, which is why we have established a package of trusts. This is how it would work and why it protects you. Again, we'll use the same example. You purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000, transferred the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalued for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchased these items, you placed each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, how does this protect you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car with the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole, and this is important, and all of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons, not having anything whatsoever to do with the accident in question. Therefore, the plaintiff has no standing to sue them. So this trust package works very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are not available to you if you do not establish your trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. But again, whether you're a denarian or not, given the environment that we live in this country today, with an increasing surveillance state, increasing taxation, and the erosion of our rights, the establishment of this trust package is indispensable to protecting your privacy and your wealth from the intrusion of the federal government. Now, there is one other benefit to possessing this trust, and it's a post-RV one. As I said, phase 2 of our program is providing you with all of the product, services, and professional referrals that you will need after the revaluation of these currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar, hopefully to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the dinar. Now, of course, if we cannot have the seminar there because of the reemergence of COVID, which we hope will not be the case, we will be releasing a DVD on our website from our office, reviewing all of the things I'm about to share with you now. But at this seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trust Unlimited to instruct and assist you with the management and funding of this trust package. We will also have our tax specialists there, since so many of the denarians will again be for the first time dealing with a substantial amount of wealth, and they're going to want to take advantage of all the legitimate and legal tax strategies available to them to legally reduce their tax exposure. We will also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well to assist you with the investment of these funds. Now, you're not obligated to deal with any of the people that we have, but they can all at least provide some baseline information for you and give you some direction. Now, it's important that you, from day one, do everything you can to ensure that nothing happens to this newly acquired wealth. We know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that we are already in an inflationary environment, and the revaluation of these currencies is going to create an extremely, I would say, hyperinflationary environment for currencies as well as financial assets. So you're going to want to transition from fiat currencies and from financial assets to more Basel III compliant currencies and tangible assets, things like gold, silver, cryptos, real estate investment trust, direct investment into real estate, things of that nature. And this trust is specifically designed for the ownership of those types of assets. So it's important that you take a holistic approach to this, that you do all of the things you need to do in preparation for the revaluation, and that you ensure that all of your patience, hard work, and preparation are not lost due to bad decisions with regard to investments. The rule of thumb basically is the more wealth you have, the less risk you need to take. And we hope to assist you in those areas as well. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like checking, savings accounts, and investment accounts post-RV. One optional gift sub-trust if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends and wish to control those proceeds post-RV, which sub-trust can be converted to a standard sub-trust at any time, and then 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to market our trust package to Dinarians. We knew that price tag was going to be unaffordable for many. So by simplifying the package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are a number of ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which basically offsets our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would then need to be paid within 30 days. So with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would actually be less than the $100 a month you'd be paying under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you, because our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in force prior to the revaluation of these currencies for all of the reasons that I've stated here. Now, we have in the past few weeks had a little computer issue, so I am going to try to go to a little Q&A. But before I do, and again for our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you should seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation informational package. It does contain everything you need should you wish to proceed. Let me say that again. The package does include everything you need should you wish to proceed to establish a trust, but again, you're under no obligation to do so. You can review everything in the package. There's a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation, about our post-RV services. You can contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. Now, our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for nearly 40 years myself, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have 80 years' experience working in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, for those of you that have currencies, again, for the first time in your life, most of you are going to be faced with the management of a very substantial sum of money. And it's important you understand that from time to time things can go wrong. Now, under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged complicated processes. Then there are, of course, business losses, investment losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So, in fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, thanks so much for listening to our call. I'm going to go to the Q&A here, and when I do, first I'll give you our contact information, and then if there are any questions, I'll be happy to attempt to take those calls. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I want to give you our contact information. You can go to our website for information. That's Trusts with an S, UnlimitedLLC.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, UnlimitedLLC@gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. Once again, we'll be happy to send you our no-obligation package. It contains everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You may review the package, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. We do have a question here. Our first questionnaire is, let's see, that's area code 505. That's 505. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jim. I want to thank you for everything. I've got the trust, but I've been hearing reports around stating that it's not a good idea to have your trust in your own name. And unfortunately, I set mine up that way. One, is this an issue? And two, how do I change it?
Okay. In my opinion, it's not an issue, and I'll give you an example. I've established for myself the George Family Asset Management Trust and the George Family Gift Trust. So let's walk through the process for this. Let's say someone decides they want to do a background check on Jim George. The trust will not come up because Jim George operates under a Social Security number and the trust operates under an EIN number. All right? Let's say that I'm involved in a civil suit, and the litigation attorney in their questioning asks if I am the settlor, trustee, or beneficiary of a trust. The answer would be yes, and it's the George Family Asset Management Trust. What protects me is not the existence of the trust or the name of the trust. What protects me are the terms of the trust. And that we've gone to great lengths to make sure that it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to pierce this trust. Now, we've done literally thousands of trusts, and we've had exactly 0 trusts pierced through civil litigation. And there have been a handful of civil cases that have been brought for various reasons having nothing to do with the currencies. Now, once these currencies do revalue, and as the example I gave, people may want to file suit against you. They will know that you have a trust. But the fact that you have a trust does not mean that they can, on a whim, find out what's in the trust or what's going on. It's going to be a very, very difficult process for them to proceed because they'll be flying blind. When you sue an individual, it's pretty easy. You can get a forensic accountant or private investigator, do a standard background check. You can know just about everything on the person. I think people would be shocked to know how much you can learn about somebody through a background check. But if someone's got their assets in trust, the other side, the plaintiff side's flying blind. And no one wants to take a case that involves a monetary reward if they don't know if there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So that's the long and the short of that story.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye now. Now, we did have one other caller who somehow disappeared. I'm going to hit this again and see if he came back. Nope, we've lost our second caller. Well, we had a caller come in here now. This is area code 312. That's 312. Go.
Hey, Jim, it's Les. How are you? Good
Yes.
to hear you.
Les, how's it going, my friend?
It's going all right, buddy. It's going all right. Glad to hear you on the call. I don't know what happened last week. I forgot. And the week before that, I forgot. And then when 12 o'clock rolls around, because I'm Central Time, I remember the call. So
well,
I set my alarm today.
You can always listen to the replay.
I did last week. I did listen to the replay.
Yes,
so
sir.
I set my alarm.
Well, what can I do for you today?
My question has to deal with Iran and Iraq. If the women in Iran are throwing water bottles at the person in charge, wanting him to get out of office, and then you have them not wearing their head cover. Now, that's totally a violation over there. How would that, their protesting over there affect Iraq's business?
The more chaos Iran, the better for Iraq. Remember, Iran has always viewed Iraq as their little piggy bank, and they're always intruding in the affairs of Iraq. But they're having their own issues. As you said, they're having issues economically, even though the current administration, in their mind-numbing stupidity, has released the sanctions against Iran and is trying to reopen negotiations for the nuke deal. The country is in such bad shape, the people are revolting. Now, this happened under the Obama administration, and rather than assisting these people, we did nothing. And, of course, this bunch that's in there now is doing the same thing. But one thing that is mitigating against Iran's bad behavior is that the IMF's made it pretty clear that the Iranian rial is not going to revalue along with the dinar and some of these others if they don't stop them misbehaving. So we'll have to see how this plays out. These protests are going to continue. The mullahs are losing a little bit of their grip because there's just more Iranian citizens than there are hardcore 12th Imam or Shias running the country. So that's a good sign too. But again, the more chaos in Iran, the better for Iraq, in my opinion.
Okay. Great. Thanks for taking my call, answering my question, and say hi to the professor, and you have a great day.
Yes, sir. Take care. All right, next caller is, I think it's area code 619. That's 619.
Hey, Jim, Eddie Ibarra. How you doing?
How you doing, my friend?
I'm grayer and older, according to my bathroom mirror, my friend.
Yeah, I just had a birthday.
Happy birthday. I did too. Hey, Jim, has there been any news with regards to getting Maliki arrested based off his warrant that's out for him?
Half of the country wants him arrested. The other half of the country either doesn't want him arrested or thinks it's going to create so much controversy in the country. He's just a hot potato, and they don't know what to do with him. And I hope what happens is the heat for him is so bad that he just flees to Iran, and he's a non-issue. But it's just a poison pill that won't go away.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And part of the problem is he won't go away. This thing still seems to drag on, but they seem to be getting rid of him.
Well, the coalition framework, it's sort of like the Democratic Party. They have the hard left, and then they have the centrist Democrats, and the hard left can't get what they want. The centrist Democrats, even though they're trying to appease them, just can't buy with all the things they want to do. The same way with the coalition framework. The moderate Shia, and let's face it, the majority of Iraqis are Shia, but the moderate Shia are just not going to go along with the hardcore pro-Iranian Shia. So Maliki is in that group of the hardcore. So he's Iraq's AOC. And so we'll just see what happens.
Hey, one more question. You mentioned something earlier in your conference call about the 48 hours, potential 48 hours. Could you kind of go over that again? I kind of missed part of that.
No, all I was saying was in Kuwait, when they reinstituted the Kuwaiti dinar, all the way up to within 40 hours of the reinstitution of the Kuwaiti dinar, the government and the central bank there were saying, well, we probably won't reinstitute for another year, and then 48 hours later they reinstituted. Now, I think part of the reason they did that was to scuttle the speculators, and that could be what's happening in Iraq as well. I will tell you this. The reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in terms of dollars makes the reinstitution of the Kuwaiti dinar chump change. It's a different environment globally. It's a different environment in the country. Iraq is a much richer nation than Kuwait. The advantage Kuwait has, where it's strategically located on the Gulf there, in order for Iraq to get their, the oil to the barges. That's one of the reasons they went after Kuwait to begin with. But Iraq is so much more wealthy than Kuwait, so much larger than Kuwait, so much more is involved right now. So it makes sense to me that if they knew the exact moment it was going to reinstitute, they wouldn't tell us. They'd tell us something else.
Okay. I got one last question for you. Is that okay?
Sure. Absolutely.
So question would be this. We get our funds in our trust, okay? We go out and we buy the investments and properties and, Bitcoin or whatever it is you want to invest in to get it out of the current bank scenario. But those guys may spin off interest, and that interest is going to be sent back to you, to your bank. So it's kind of like a darned if you do and darned if you don't. If you put it in the real estate assets, that's one thing, but you're going to get rent. If you get rent, you got to deposit the check. So how do we protect that check from being swiped by what the government wants to do is take it? And I know you mentioned that there's some classes maybe coming up or whatever, some things you're going to discuss later, but that's been my boggling mind as to, okay, how do we get through that loophole?
Okay, now I'm not saying they're going to take it. I'm saying that with the digital currency, they will have ultimate control of it. So when I'm suggesting, for example, if I suggest precious or industrial metals, there is no interest there. It just increases in value.
Sure.
You can liquidate as you need it. Cryptos works outside of the system. If we want to get really exotic, and we'll talk about that post-RV, we'd be setting off offshore accounts. You might even move out of the SWIFT system altogether. I'm of the opinion that the central bank system is about to collapse, and the digital currency might be their Hail Mary. Now, if you're invested in things that spin off interest or dividends, you're right. Those interest and dividends will be exposed to the digital currency, but you still minimized their control because they don't have the principal; they just have the interest. So we can't avoid entirely. We're just trying to minimize their exposure. We want to move away from currencies. As an example, right now, the banks are offering CDs. I still do some investment work just because I've got some clients I've had for years, and I don't do an investment advisory work anymore. So we just talk friend to friend, and I have family members, and I say, look, you can go get a CD right now, and you're locked up for a year. If the digital currency comes along, all right, now that the principal is in their system already. And then also from an investment standpoint, if the market crashes, you can't pull the money out of that CD without paying a penalty to get back into the market. However, right now, because of an inverted yield curve, you can purchase a 30, 60, or 90-day T-bill. The annualized rate of return is 10%. So if you need to be, you can pull it out of the T-bill every 30, 60, or 90 days if you're concerned about the digital currency. And if the market collapses, you've got the liquidity to go back in and buy it in at a lower rate. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds about investments, but like I said, you want to minimize the amount of money that's in currencies altogether. And for right now, for a lot of reasons, I would never buy a CD. Why buy a CD at 2% when you can put it in a T-bill paying 10%?
Makes sense. Hey, Jim, you've been a great help as always. Thank you so much for all your information.
Sure. Take care, Eddie. Bye-bye.
You too.
Okay, our next caller is, it looks like area code 603.
Hello, Jim.
Is this Big Don?
Yeah, Jim, how you doing, buddy?
Okay, how you doing?
Oh, good. Been a few weeks since I talked to you, and the hate of that out there from Chicago. In fact, my question is kind of along the same lines as Les, only my question was about the protests in Iraq. Now, you have family over there. We hear that there are protests. We hear there aren't protests. Are, in fact, there protests going on over there to get this currency stuff done, or is that just rumors we keep hearing?
There were protests, and they were pretty bad in around the green zone. There are still protests, but they are much more orderly. Remember, Sadr is basically walking away from the dysfunctional parliament, and they're back once again protesting about the white paper reforms, the infrastructure, all of those things. But yes, there still are protests going on, and there's also some sectarian issues because they always seem to have a kind of a rub. Remember, we have the Shia, we have the Sunni, but we also have the Kurds. So, and it's still a tribal culture. So, that the truth is, this has always been going on. There's always been someone protesting something, and they have legitimate concerns. They're so fractured. That's one of the reasons I don't like the parliamentary system, because it's so fractured. It's a bunch of little groups, all in their little group, and the little groups have to try to form some sort of a coalition to get things done. I just don't like the parliamentary system. And so
you've talked about that before, yeah.
It's just very complicated. They not only have a parliamentary system, they have a complicated parliamentary system. They have so many different parties, dozens and dozens of parties. Then you have the history there, the sectarianism, the tribalism. Then you have the corrupt individuals. It's just so hard to get anything done. That's why I like Kazemi, the Prime Minister of the caretaker government, because Kazemi, to me, is like the George Washington of Iraq. Remember, during the revolution, there were disputes among the various colonies. There were mutinous factions within the Revolutionary Army. Washington had suffered a series of losses, but somehow he managed to fight through all of that and win a revolutionary war. And Kazemi seems to me to be he's the kind of guy that when there's all the screaming and yelling and chaos and dysfunction around him, somehow, what's he doing? He's out there, he's a caretaker government. Supposedly, all the caretaker government does is keep the lights on. He's out there negotiating agreements on banking, on trade. He's gone to the UN. He's dealing with the IMF. He's dealing with the Arab Monetary Fund, the World Bank. It's like he knows what needs to be done. He's going to continue to do it. If someone gets in his way, just pushes him aside. So hopefully, he's the guy that can get this done.
Okay, now, since he is out there meeting with all those important entities and people and so forth, do you think that he knows how close we really are to this? Obviously, he can't say. But because he's put so much work and so many hours of travel and seeing all these people, do you think he knows it's imminent and he wants to get everything laid out now? I mean, what do you think?
I wouldn't say he knows that it's imminent. I think he knows what needs to be done in order for the reinstitution, for them to go to a floating country. So that's the point. It's like Washington. Washington knew what he needed to do to get control of the situation. Kazemi knows what he needs to do. But he's the guy that's focused on the end game instead of all the squabbling.
Okay. So the protests and everything over there, they're actually a good thing. Do you think they'll keep the powers that be motivated to keep moving ahead? And
I wouldn't say it's a good thing. I would just say I don't think ultimately it will be an impediment to the reinstitution.
Gotcha. Okay. And by the way, gotcha. Now, by the way, we're in Florida, and we're far enough north and west that the storm never got us. We never had any rain in that.
Where were you exactly?
Okay, we're about 10 miles west of the intersection of I-10, which goes east and west, in the northern part of the state, and I-75 goes north and south. So we're about 10 miles west of that intersection, and we had some cloudy. We had no rain, and we had one day, got a little breezy, but I won't say it was windy. It just got a little breezy. So we were lucky. It went in far enough south and went across the other side. and we never saw any of it. My brother, on the other hand, lives in Fort Myers, and he got hammered. He had a couple of feet of water in the house and everything, and but he's okay. He's just cleaning everything up.
Wow.
We'll be okay.
Well, my wife has relatives in Fort Myers and Sanibel Island, and she said the people in Fort Myers are okay, but the Sanibel Island is absolutely nothing is left. It's a mud.
I know.
But,
I've seen pictures,
yeah.
And even the roads washed out. They came and drive out. They emergency vehicles and nothing.
Yeah.
Boat and helicopter. That's it.
Yeah, and we're sending money to Ukraine, and we have people. It's a mess.
I know. Don't get me started on that. We're all the same camp on that deal.
I probably shouldn't even have said that, but my point is.
No, that's okay. You're good.
Yeah. Well, if this administration's not careful, Florida's going to be their Katrina. But enough said about that. But listen, thanks for the call, Dan. I got one other guy I got to get to here. Okay.
Okay, Jim. Yeah, great job. Thank you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Nice talking with you. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 323. That's 323. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. Good morning. Good morning. Still morning in the West Coast. I'm Sebastian from Los Angeles.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Totally in the weeds over here. There's so much going on. But how are you doing?
Very good. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate your information. I'll tell you something that the only information I listen is yours because the other people, I got tired of them promising a lot of things, and it's just like a song, a daily song that they sing every day. Anyway, thank you so much for your kind of information you give us, okay?
You certainly will.
Thank you. My question is very simple. On the past, I called you and I told you that the bank told me that the trust was not the one that they used and whatever they said. And you told me that you have created a document that we can present to them at the time, right?
Yes. Let me explain this again for everybody.
Thank you so much.
We have instructed our clients, do not establish a trust bank account pre-RV. One of the reasons for that is that there's no reason to. The second reason for that is that some banks are going to give you a hard time if you do not use their trust. Now, the trusts that the banks have established have been established for their benefit, not yours, in my opinion. And I don't want to get into a lot of detail about that. Once the dinar reinstitutes in country, we're going to stop our marketing of the trust, and we're going to deal with the exchange, process, management, and funding of the trust. One of the things we will be sending out by email or on our when we send out our letters is the document explaining to the bank, the banks do not use a business trust. Our trust is structured like a business trust, but it is not a business trust. It is a personal asset protection trust. So we have a special letter that you will take with you to the bank. Now, a lot of people are not negotiators, so they're going to be intimidated by the bank. This is why we don't want people dealing with the banks before it's necessary, because when you go to the bank with your currencies, you're the one with all the leverage. You're going to go in with and we have a specific document, an exchange protocol document, along with an explanation of the trust. We call it the Jed Clampett effect. For those of you old enough that know what the TV show, the Beverly Hillbillies, you're the one with the money. You're the one in control. You just have to understand that. You're going to go into the bank with the documents to show them this is not a business trust, and you're going to let them know in no uncertain terms that there are asset protection, privacy, and tax reasons why the money needs to go into a trust bank account and not a personal account. You have to be willing to get up and walk out of that bank if they start playing games with you. So if you want, if you will send me an email, if I haven't sent it to you, I will send you the specific document I'm referring to that explains specifically that this is not a business trust. It's a personal asset protection package. And again, we plan on getting into this in detail when the currency reinstitutes, because that's when we're going to shift gears. But send me an email. I'll be happy to send you everything you need.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. Do we have to pay you for that? Or
of course,
let me know.
Absolutely. No, sir. There's no fee at all.
Jim, I thank you so much. Okay, I will be emailing you my address so you can send it to me. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your information.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Well, that was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I hope it's been informative. For those of you listening for the first time and are interested in the things we've discussed, certainly if you're a Dinarian, I would strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. You can contact us by phone or email. Again, our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited LLC @gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. Contact us by phone or email to request our no-obligation package. We'll be happy to send it to you. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package. Contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. Our next call, of course, will be next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency newsletter, email, and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.